Why is the IHP Academy getting rebranded? What does it mean to become bulletproof? What are the 4 areas you need to protect? What are 5 categories of threats? What is the one key strategy to staying safe? Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick and this is Super Simple Security Principles. Listen each week and learn how to protect yourself online, no matter your skill level. This is special edition episode number 2, the Bulletproof Dojo. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. McConney, are you pumped about today's episode?
I am. It's been a long, interesting road to get where we're here, and I'm excited for the narrowed focus and the rebrand, so that I feel like we can make some serious progress on actually helping people. You know.
Excellent. I'm super excited. That said, we're going to jump right in because I've got a ton of questions besides the questions that are at hand. Obviously, the first one we got to address, the elephant in the room. Why is the IHP Academy getting rebranded? All right, bud.
Yeah. Well, it's I I think so. Going back to when we started in April 2023, and when we talked about it, I mostly thought of, basically doing the same thing as I had been doing as a hobby, helping people with their online security. And in a way, that hasn't changed, but that's really broad, right? When you say that to somebody, they don't
Right.
really know what that means. It includes so much.
Yeah.
And it seems kind of simple in a way, but what I've finally figured out is that, we can't help everyone with everything all at once. It's like shocking, right? I mean,
What you're saying is you're trying to narrow your scope?
yeah, exactly. We got to start somewhere, right? Like,
Right, right.
I still have big dreams of all sorts of things we'll be able to help people with, in the long run, but we've got to start somewhere. And yeah, so that's the answer to that first question, I think.
Excellent.
Narrow,
Excellent.
narrow. Zoom in, focus, and do one thing really well.
Dude, I totally got to ask. You set yourself up for that. What's that one thing, man?
Well, okay, so yeah, the I considered a number of different things, and I won't share all those, but just one because I think is privacy. It's a hot topic these days, and it's one that I care a lot about myself, and I know you do, and lots of people do. But the reason why I discounted that one is because it means so many different things to different people.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot more out in that space, I feel like.
Hmm.
And so it's something I want to tackle eventually, but for now, I wanted something that everyone could agree on. And ultimately, what that is protection against identity theft. Everyone wants to keep your accounts from being hacked, your credit score from being abused, your information from getting stolen, your money from getting stolen. There's no, everybody's on the same page on that. And so that's why I want to narrow the focus. And the name is Bulletproof Dojo because we want to help people become bulletproof to identity theft. And, I don't know exactly what the tag or the slogan will be other than like the phrase that mostly has stuck with me so far is become bulletproof.
I love it. I love it.
And that's gonna a lot of people are gonna think about like the identity theft protection services out there.
Yeah.
And so just to clarify what's going to be different for us is, I mean, we're not doing that at all. Like it's in a totally different thing. Like we would potentially recommend one of those, help you find one because that, some of them could be useful services. But from my perspective, their service is only a piece of the puzzle. Um,
Yeah.
there's things that, and this, obviously, we've talked a lot that the individual, they need to know and do that no service, no tool can do for them. And so that's what we want to give them. We want to provide, training basically to empower each individual with everything they need to become bulletproof to identity theft.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, I want in.
Yeah.
I want in. You know?
Well,
Like,
and do you want to share your, like, so I want to talk a little bit about the word bulletproof, but
yeah.
I wanted you to share because I thought your story about bulletproof, if you want to, that you shared with me earlier when I told you about it in the first place, that was pretty
Oh,
cool.
why I love the name Bulletproof.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm a
You
little
don't
bit
have
of a
to if you
risk
don't want to,
taker.
but yeah,
No, I'll share this a little bit. I'm a little bit of a risk taker, and you know, I had some injuries and I was having some surgeries, and my daughters were young and they were worried. And so I would tell them, don't worry, I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And so I've always loved the concept of being bulletproof. And so when you wanted to create, a bulletproof dojo, and to where we could bulletproof ourselves from identity theft, I loved it. I was all in. So that was my story. That's why for me, I was okay with the rebranding. I was hesitant until I heard the name and then I was like, "Oh, this is cool." So,
yeah. Well, and it's a big deal. I know it's a change, and so let me tell you the reasons I ultimately went for it. So there's two big ones really. First is, um, I want to give people hope. I want people to know that they can be safe online. You know,
yeah.
and even though a bulletproof vest isn't perfect, um, it's good protection, right? And when it
Yeah.
comes to security, especially these days, there's a lot of fear. I talk to people who are afraid to be online at all, despair, even in some cases. And what I'd like to help people develop is what I like to call confident awareness. I don't want them to be ignorantly, like blissfully ignorant, right? I want them to understand what the real danger is out there and not feel safe just because they don't actually know what the threats are. But I want
Right.
them to know and feel safe. So anyway, it's kind of a positive word, right? It gives you some idea that you can actually have some strong protection.
Right.
And
Part
then
part
the
of part of becoming bulletproof is understanding at least the threat, and so I like it, That's a very valuable point. So, sorry, go ahead, continue
no.
on.
So the second way is, and I looked up some details about this to make sure I was thinking about it correctly, but the way bulletproof vests are constructed turns out to be a pretty good metaphor for online security. And we've used several of them, and I'm sure we'll continue to use them. This won't be the only one, but um, it's all about layers. Uh,
Ah,
because they have three of the layers that I looked at. And of course there's different vests and configurations, right? Which also parallels online security. There's Kevlar, there's steel, there's ceramic, or some of the ones I recognized, and they're to protect against different sizes of bullets, different velocities of bullets, even like knives, not just bullets, right? um,
wow.
and so and they have not only they'll have multiple layers of the same thing sometimes, anyway, just lots of different things, but the theme of it all is layers. And as you know, I mean, this is something I know you really latched onto and really keyed into is layers, right?
Yep.
And that's what we need in online security. And so going back to that identity theft protection service, that's one layer or maybe even multiple layers
Right.
because they provide a
Right.
bunch of things. But
Right.
we want, all the useful layers we can. So,
Exactly. I love the layer up concept.
yeah. And I have to add just a small disclaimer for anybody who ends up listening to this that might take life a little too seriously. Is I just want to be clear that I recognize that bulletproof protection doesn't mean invulnerability. You know, because there are some computer geeks like myself who get a little uptight about these words and will be like, "Oh, you can't be bulletproof." It's like, well, you can actually because bulletproof vests. If you look at them, they even talk about like multi-hit capability. You know, how many bullets can they take before they break? Plus,
Wow.
you got your head and legs and whatever. They don't pretend that it's invulnerability, and neither do we, right?
Right. What if she had shot you in the head? You know?
Yeah. So, eh, but we also don't want to undersell it. We want to make it clear that there is powerful protection that is available
Yeah.
within their reach. And so that's the compromise. And, it's a little fun too, right? Like we like to have fun. And so we don't have to take ourselves too seriously. And we can say it's
Right.
bulletproof, you know?
Right.
So, um, yeah. So I think that's it. Do you have what's your next question for me, Nick? Anything else?
Okay, so
Because I've got some more.
do you? Yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
I mean, still
but no,
talking about.
Oh no, no, not on. No, totally other different things. So you
I
go if
was
you've got
about
one.
to move on and say, you know, what are the four areas you need to protect?
Hmm.
Is that, have we made it to that stage yet?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah,
Because I was going to say that's where I would lean to. I think I understand. We got to layer up, and everybody's layers are going to be a little bit different based off of preferences and what you're trying to accomplish. Like, which is
yep.
why I love this. This is a plug for the Bulletproof Dojo Academy. Like, Dojo, sorry. Ha,
Yeah, it's hard to
there
switch
it
over.
is.
I know.
It's going to be a tough one to get over.
Yep.
But part of the dojo is learning how to layer up, and I get excited for this. So, yeah. Okay, so let's move on. What are the areas we need to protect?
Right. So when you think about identity, in this context of your identity that you're trying to protect, there's different ways you could look at it, but the way at least I'm thinking about it now is that there are four areas, and the way I'm breaking that down, and there's some overlap, of course, but is your online accounts, your email, Google, Facebook, all those kind of things,
Yeah.
communications. So, phone calls, text messages, chat, email, of course. Actually, should I list first? Money and devices.
Okay.
And, we could talk more about each of those individually, but that's how I'm breaking it down. And so, and then if you look at your kind of stack of layers, they're going to be kind of customized, obviously per individual to some degree, but also heavily influenced by, the layers of protection you need for your online accounts is going to be a bit different than what you need for communication, than money and devices.
Yeah.
And so, but those are our four areas of focus.
Well, where do you want to start? Let's drill down on each one just a little bit, shall we?
Okay. Well, uh, yeah, that works. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if nothing more, don't leave us hanging. Give us a 30-second overview of each.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, yeah, no, I like it. So, you kind of alluded to this earlier that one of the most foundational layers for all four areas, and we'll start with accounts because that's kind of where I tend to default to, um, but is threat awareness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot. It's just watching some videos, reading some stuff, whatever your format you need to learn a little bit. We have podcast episodes about most of this already. um, but really just having a correct understanding of the real threats already gives you so much uh, ahead of most people, honestly, because your brain will naturally try to do the right things to protect you. And, we're pretty smart as long as we
Right.
actually know we have the right information to work with. A big part of the reason why people are so stressed and fearful online is because they don't actually know what the real threat is. And so their brain's constantly trying to protect them, but it can't because it doesn't know what to protect them from.
That
And
makes total
so,
sense. That makes total sense.
yeah, even if they just have confidence about what they know, then it helps with stress relief and fear and everything as well. So there's some immediate
Absolutely.
value there. Um,
Yeah.
and then in the accounts line, the main thing is having a good password strategy, and that means
Yeah.
having a strong, unique password and two-factor authentication, whatever other layers for all your most critical accounts. And as you know, starting with email. Um, And a lot of times most often we're going to recommend a password manager, but I know that might be a roadblock for some people. So we'll have some other strategies and anyway, we'll talk about that more, but it really comes down to passwords most of all, as well as there's some settings basically in each of your accounts because not all your accounts aren't always configured for maximum safety by default for whatever reason. So that
Yeah.
plays a role as well. Um, any questions about that for talk about communication?
I probably should have some, but I just know how critical it is to get that email taken care of, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually, I would, when it comes to communication, email actually I kind of put on top of the charts both for accounts and communication.
Right.
There's some overlap there because email just plays such a key role. Um, but the other thing we want is to have encrypted communication. Email is most definitely the farthest thing from that, so we want to have an
Right.
encrypted communication medium, both for text messaging, but voice and video as well. Um, it means learning how to authenticate all your inbound communications, your email, your text message, phone calls, meaning you want to know that you're really talking to who you think you are. So have the right strategies, skills, tools to be able to do that effectively. Um, and of course, again, I skipped over the more foundational. One of the things in the communication area is knowing the strategies that the scammers are going to use when they make contact with you, so you can be
Right.
be prepared for the different kinds of attacks um, and what's possible. And I'll give you one actually really interesting story that I just heard about the other day. I hadn't gotten one of these myself, but it turns out a lot of people are getting them, and especially since the national public data breach that we had. It's risen in
Yeah.
incident, um, but they get a PDF attachment in an email. That's to help bypass some of the scanning, although that's yeah. Anyway, and it has a lot of their personal information in it. Has their real address, their real phone number, their real name, and makes threats about things. And it just feels like they really actually have access to your information and can really it scared some people and
Hmm.
um but it's an empty threat. Like those people who are sending those are, halfway across the
Scammers.
world. They're not going to be able to come,
Yeah.
threaten you physically like they basically are saying they could.
That's crazy. Luckily, I haven't had one of those, but
Yeah.
that's crazy. They're out there.
Yeah. So on to the money one. Of
Yeah.
course, this means protecting your bank account, credit card, um, your credit score mentioned with doing a credit freeze. We've made an episode about that already. And of course, this is where those identity protection, credit protection services could come in as well. And one of the strategies that I talk about the most when it comes to money is a protection partner. We've had episodes on that. It's
Yeah.
free and provides some amazing layers of protection if used properly. There's also some tools we've talked about to keep your credit card and other information safe while shopping online, and to monitor transactions, make sure that if something does slip by, you catch it quickly. So those are some of the money things.
Dude, I'm loving the way you're piecing this together.
Okay, good. And then finally, devices. This is your phone, but
Yep.
also, your laptop, your router that you have at home. And these days, of course, it means a lot of other things, your TV and, gaming console
Oh yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
any of these
All of it.
kind of things. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and in particular, the browser on each of those devices. Because
Yeah.
that's one of our main interfaces. And so and the browser is very complex. There's a lot of settings, a lot of things you can do with that. Um, and one of the most fundamental layers here is having your security updates automatically installed everywhere. I think we have done an episode on that already.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
Um, and the
If
other,
not, make sure you're doing those.
right.
Specifically if they're security, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other critical thing that in conjunction with devices, is reading the signs, learning to know which pop-ups, warnings, questions you can ignore, okay, because there are some, and which you need to pay close attention to is critical, because there's such a crazy amount of them these days, especially like with cookie banners in particular, that a
Yeah.
lot of people have developed the habit of just instantly kind of clicking, replying or responding, to them, and a lot of people get in trouble from that, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you can go a long time without, yeah, exactly, without having a problem, because there are a lot of useless ones, right? And so,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know breaking that habit and learning to, it's not like the hardest thing in the world, but it does take some intentional effort, and sometimes just a little bit of information of, okay, I got this pop-up, Makani, what does it mean? I don't even understand what it is. And so we want to
Right.
have good kind of set of information that any kind of questions and pop-ups people have, it's really easy to find what are all the different signs, as I like to call it, you
Hmm.
know, traffic, because, when you're driving, some signs are relevant to you at different times and some aren't.
Right.
And so, anyway, that's the same kind of thing. And then, of course, there's the different tools that you can get to protect your devices, like a VPN, firewall, antivirus, those kind of things. So, yeah, I think that at least gives you kind of a high level of what we'll be talking about in the four areas.
That sounds awesome. Okay. So the four areas we need to protect, we got them. So the next one really piques my interest. This next question I have. The five categories of threats. The fact that we've boiled them down to five categories.
Yeah. Well, and specifically, right, that's part of the beauty of the narrowing on the focus, right, of,
Yeah.
becoming bulletproof against identity theft. Um,
The,
and I mean, even these categories are pretty big, but yeah, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, again, it's understanding who you're fighting, right? If you understand the five categories, if we break it down into five categories, when we break it down, I won't say if, when we break it down, uh, we'll know some of the threats, or at least the threats that we need to be aware of, and they'll have to tune in more, to hear about some of them, but I'm
Yeah, and
excited. Okay, go ahead.
so yeah, so the five are, and this, this is a less necessarily, I don't know, it could evolve, right, as new threats
Right.
manifest or just as we work through them and explaining them. But the way I have them looking at them now is phishing, data breaches,
Yeah.
malware, scams, and social engineering. That's just one I kind of putting those together, and then AI.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's um
So
yeah,
we've got the 5 categories.
yep.
Can we get a little peek into each category briefly?
Well, I don't have any notes prepared on that. Um,
Oh man, I'm putting you on the spot.
yeah. Well, we've talked about some of them. I would say the main thing what we want to do with all of them really is, like, for example, we take fishing. We had, I don't know if we actually had an episode, but we at least talked about fishing briefly. Like most people, okay, they kind of know what fishing is. They know they
Right.
shouldn't click on something. But if you go just a little bit deeper in most of it, you don't have to become, a computer geek. You don't have to like go deep, deep, deep. But for example, with fishing, we just go far enough that people understand, okay, what exactly is a phishing website? How does that
Yeah.
process work that we walked through? You know, and just a few, so like they could recognize it potentially if they saw it, and they have just a little bit more, understanding of what that happens. And with like data breaches, one of the main things to understand there is it tells you why going to some work with your passwords is worth it, right? Because when you
Yeah.
understand data breaches, okay, that's one of the key threats to my online
Right.
accounts, and why, reusing the same lousy password is a risk, you know.
Right.
And then you couple that with, okay, so it's not just this theoretical thing, but also you look at the news and we talk about the quantity of data breaches and remind them about the national
Oh,
public data breach, you know, which is less about passwords and more about your other information. But, still, data breaches are just so common these days,
yeah.
you know. And, with malware, we've talked about updates. Like, how does that happen? Why are updates relevant? It's because one of the main ways that malware gets on your devices is by the hackers exploiting bugs that they've found that haven't been fixed on your particular device yet.
Right. Right. That's huge.
So
Yeah.
that's, that changes it. It's all of a sudden, instead of being a total, annoyance of like, I need to update this, it's like, well, I got to get my,
You understand why.
yeah, exactly. So
Outstanding. Yeah.
um yeah, so I think I would say overall the main thing is just understanding where the threat comes from, what layers of protection it's connected to. They're really,
Okay.
it's good to be able to connect them because they give you motivation. They help guide, because too, not everybody has the same level of threat, from each of the kinds of, categories too. You know,
Right.
if because some people, like, I work with a lot of other, folks who have businesses online, and a lot of them are content creators, and so they're using AI a lot to help them make social media posts and do things.
Yeah.
And so that means they're using AI. And I mean, in general, more and more people are using AI, but they're already a segment that is using it a ton. And so
Right.
that means there's, some things that it's useful for them to understand even more than, your average person.
Dude, it just makes sense. You need to create a tailored bulletproof plan.
Yeah.
You know, just makes sense.
Yep.
All right. So the last one, as you know, before the show we talked about, this was the one that I was intrigued with, because this is what our listeners have waited around for, right? Here's McConaughey's question for us. What is the one key strategy to staying safe? Okay, I
Well,
want to know.
it may come as a disappointment. It's the layers. It's just the layers. That's why I put it in the name. That's why we talk about it so much. Is don't just think because you have a good password that's enough. You know, you want to have 2FA. You want to make sure that it's not used somewhere else either. Just because you pick a really good password, but then you use it other places, that's a problem. And
Right.
I mean, anyway, that's how kind of I boil down to um, our strategy is what we want to do is we want to help people find the right layers for their situation, figure out what the right layers are, that is, and then
Yeah.
help them get them,
Yeah.
you know. And I think the only other thing that I mean, so yeah, that's what I would call is the key. Um, and it's the two. So like the way I think about that is, we've talked about the areas we're protecting, talked about the things
Mm-hmm.
we're protecting from, but the other
Yep.
kind of big picture piece is, okay, so how do we do that, right? And the two pieces that I put, the most foundational, or like diff, different, I guess, is that layers, right? And
Yeah.
that's you get those layers. The other piece, though, too, um, I would call. I want us to be like the go-to trustworthy source of answers.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the other big way we help you become bulletproof and to be a resource for you, because ultimately it's about each individual has to become bulletproof themselves. We don't make you bulletproof. We don't give you a service that makes you bulletproof. We help you become bulletproof for yourself. And so part of that is just answering any questions that you get roadblocked on. And the reason why I feel like that's so important. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just had a simple metaphor that goes along with why it's so important to have layers, but to have something that's tailored to you. Because here's the thing, there are certain threats that, just like, for example, I'm a skier. When I go skiing, I take a whole lot of different gear and different layers with me to go skiing than I do when I'm just hanging out at the house, and I don't want to always walk around in ski gear, you know. I want to be able to sometimes, and the same is true for the Bulletproof Dojo, is there are certain areas to where absolutely we'll want to dial up our layers. We're going to have multiple layers, you know, and then there are other times to where 2 or 3 layers might be just enough, depending on what we're trying to accomplish. So I love it. This is a tailored plan, a tailor layer plan that is for the individuals. And we want to be your wealth of knowledge. We want to be your resource for your questions, and not just a resource, but the correct resource.
Yeah.
How did I do
Well,
there?
no, that was good. I just, yeah, I want to reinforce that one a lot because I think that, well, so with, especially, I mean, with the internet and especially with AI, like there's so many
Dude, just tell
answers.
them the truth. Tell them
It,
the truth, man. Let our listeners know why McConney wants to be the wealth.
yeah, well,
I'm
because,
going to put you on the spot.
yeah.
I know the answer. Let's go.
Okay, well, I'm interested in hearing your version, but, there's a little bit of build up to it because I feel like it's kind of it's a weird combination of things because finding answers, like there's so much information, finding answers has never been easier, right? Like there's AI, you can ask questions, there's the search engines, But
Right.
at the same time, finding answers you can trust, especially to the really hard questions, the ones that are like most subjective, I feel like in a way that's never been harder, partly
Right.
because of that crazy abundance of answers. And there's so many loud voices screaming at you that they're right. And so that's why. And in security, one of the main examples of why it's hard in my experience, as I've been listening to other folks who talk about security or privacy things, is when it comes to like products or services. I'm always asking, like, do they really believe in this product, or is it just because they're getting sponsored?
Right.
You know and these are even really in a lot of ways the kind of simple questions, because the harder ones are like, okay, well, where should I start if I want to improve my online security? What's the first simplest step that I can take that's going to be right for me?
Yeah.
And so that's part of what I envision. Like, I want the Bulletproof Dojo to be the go-to place for all these kinds of questions. I want to be the one that people look to. I want to be I know a guy,
Yeah.
you know, for anyone who wants it to be, you know. And I actually have a funny story that you'll really appreciate along these lines. So, my oldest son, and
Yeah.
our relationship has been a little bit bumpy over the years.
Yeah.
And he called me, I don't know, it's been probably a month or something, and he said, it's really cool that anytime I have a computer problem, I can just call my father and I know he'll help me fix it. you know he was really grateful, and it was just, that was an awesome moment for me.
That is awesome. I love it. Good
And
on you to
it,
your son. I'm telling him, way to be.
yeah,
Good job, dude.
exactly. Well, and like about a month before that or something, his wife had had an issue with one of her accounts getting hacked. And so it was kind of late at night or whatever, I can't remember. It was an inconvenient time anyway, but they're like, he won't mind. So they called me, and I dropped what I was doing and we walked her through it, and got things taken care of. you know um and I'm not gonna be able to call for the world, but I that's, it still tells you kind of that's what I'm shooting for.
In a
And
way, you really are being on call for the world. You've put yeah, we know the time and the effort's spent, but
yeah,
um, my story is very similar, so I won't really share my side other than the fact that I know you've always wanted to be a source, a trustworthy source that people can get their information from. Like, this goes back years, years. And so we really mean it when we want to be the source, especially when it comes to these complex layers of security. We want to help. And so, yeah, I love
yeah,
that our one key strategy is layers, and that we want to be the source of great information, correct information.
yeah. Well, and it's the reason why I keep doing this podcast every week, is so not only to provide that information, but in a way, just as importantly, so we have just a long history of free information. Anybody can listen to the podcast and decide for themselves, because the only way they're going to be able to trust me is knowing what I have to say, how I think,
Yep.
and and that takes time. It's not going to be just one little thing. And so they get to hear my thoughts on all sorts of things over a long period of time. And that's what keeps me going doing this.
Yeah. I love
So,
it. I love it.
oh,
All right, man. Anything else?
no, I think I get so emotional, as you can see, talking about it. I get excited, but I mean, it's kind of draining in a way too, because it's just like,
Right.
oh, I wanna do it. Anyway, so
Dude,
it's
I
good
love it.
stuff. I love it.
Uh, Dude, I love your passion. Like, and your passion's visible, and that's why I wanted our listeners to see it, to hear it, to understand. Look, this is why I refer to this man as the master guardian. You know, he really does want to lock down and help you become bulletproof, and which is awesome. So he wants to be your guy. He's my guy. I know he is a ton of people's guy. Like, and he wants to be your guy too. So, dude, where can they check us out at, Makani?
I'll say that's the yeah. I mean, obviously the website and everything's going to be changing, so
Yep.
we'll have to update the links. But there's a link in the show notes. For now, we have the easy to type in URL, helpmegetsafe.com. You know,
Excellent.
and that'll
So
take them to
helpmegetsafe.com. That'll
yeah
take you to our
to IHPacademy.com for now. But ultimately, we have bulletproofdojo.com is going to be the new website. Um,
woo.
yeah. So and yeah, and so we still got to end with a call to action. You know,
Of course.
it's kind
Of
of a
course.
unique one, right? But um, I'd like them to visit our forum. That's what I was thinking. Unless you have something else in mind, but I want to visit, and I'm curious to hear what they think about our refined, focused vision.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess too for this one is a good time to just once again thank all our listeners for their support and patience as we figure this out.
Right.
We're still in the early days of figuring it out. We've got a lot of early supporters that have been really enthusiastic and faithful, and slowly growing, and appreciate it all so much. So
We do. We love our faithfuls. Like we really do. We appreciate the support, and yeah, it's can I add a twofer? Can I add a second one?
sure.
I would love to hear we want to hear from you on our forum. And we would love for you to share this. If you're listening to this
Oh
right
yeah.
now, we would love for you to just share this episode with one other person. Help us spread the word. That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Appreciate that one. And I was gonna say, Nick, I kind of got distracted to train of thought, but I appreciate your all the things you said about me, but I just have to make sure to reciprocate, because you have a different way of thinking about it, but your energy, enthusiasm, support of me and the whole venture, that we could do it together. I've never started a business, wouldn't have had faith to do it without you every step of the way. And so it's as much as you're maybe less in the limelight, but I feel like this is your creation as much as it is mine, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, we were delayed there. We got to try one more time, man. Okay,
Yeah.
there's just too much lag on video, I guess, but good enough.
Good enough. We'll take it. Dude, thank you. Appreciate the shout out. Appreciate the love and support. It's a fun venture. So that said,
Okay.
that's our show today.
Yeah, it's a long one, but time to
It's
wrap
a
up.
long one.
Yep.
Yeah. Give it a like, give it a share, and we can't wait to hear from you at our forum.
Okay.
Okay, see ya. Okay, that's our super simple show today. If you're not a member of the IHP Academy already, please come join us for free. Stop searching the whole internet for answers and never knowing who to trust, ask us instead. We made it super simple to find us, and it only takes 2 minutes to sign up. Just visit helpmegetsafe.com. Enter your name and your email. You're in. You can also find the link in our show notes. Thank you for joining us, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.